What's that even mean?
Hi guys!
What does that even mean?
So I was all excited because there for a while, I don't know why it's so dark in here today, but there for a while you couldn't bring anyone else on with Facebook. Like first you could and then you couldn't, so you couldn't do lives, like co-lives with your friends. What?
It's overcasty.
Yeah, it is overcasty. That's a technical term. And I can do it again. So I just saw that. But can I show you my first haircut of my life? What do you guys think? I did all right. The fading was very stressful, but Brandon now has less hair, and it doesn't look horrible.
You saying I looked horrible before?
No, I'm just saying that I didn't do it. Hi, Amanda.
Amanda.
I didn't do a horrible job cutting his hair. So, full on respect for all of you hairstylists, hairdressers. It is much harder.
Yeah. Sarah, hopefully you're not yelling at her like, don't touch anything until you see me.
Right, and I told him, I was like, well, by the time anybody sees the back of your hair, it'll have grown out by now. So, yeah. So
Amanda, how's your fruits and veggies list going today? Did you hit it yesterday?
we're doing a fruits and veggies list. I like it.
She's doing it. The 6 servings a day.
Oh, nice. I love it. I love it. Hi, John. All right, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to piggyback onto yesterday, and I don't know what happened yesterday. Actually, really quick, are we blurry? Tell me if we're blurry. Yesterday it kicked us off and wouldn't let us go live again, and then today when we went live with the kids class, they said it was blurry, and now it's because it's on my it's on Verizon, not my Wi-Fi. So if it's blurry, let us know. But anyway, so yesterday we were talking about taking inspired action, and then I had the idea of doing a virtual vision boarding. So what I was going to say at the end of yesterday was who would be interested. So we kind of started in with a breath work and getting into our heart space and starting to get to the point where we can actually tap into our imagination, because we can't do vision boarding if we can't actually imagine what we don't already have. So if you guys are interested in that, drop me. I don't know when we would do it, one night during the week. No one's going anywhere, so so it's not like you have somewhere to be. So we'll figure out a day for that. But if you want to do that, right? Yeah, totally. Obviously, it would be free. It'd just be super fun to hang out, see everybody. We'll do it via Zoom. So if you want to do that, drop me a comment. But we wanted to give you guys today is kind of like 5 to 6 ways. I'm not going to put a limit on it because you know how we are. Some actual ways on like how do you yes, these are our boundaries. We're going to give you some things you can do. So what we really want to figure out is we get a lot of questions of like, okay, well, I understand that I want to figure out the best version of myself or the highest version of myself, but I have no idea how to actually go there, right? And so the first thing would be doing the vision boarding, and actually like the thing about vision boarding, you guys, that's so important is that you need to be able to see what you actually want, and you need to imagine what it's going to feel like to be doing those things, having time freedom, having money freedom, taking the kids to Disneyland, going on a cruise, whatever. Like, you need to actually know what that's going to feel like, because like we talked about yesterday, it's the feeling that's so important. So that's why vision boarding is one of my favorite things, because like when we were kids, we used our imaginations all the time, and then as adults, we're sort of like I sometimes sit down to play Barbies with the girls, and I kind of feel terrible about the fact that I don't have a ton of imagination. I do a little more now because I tell them stories all the time, but it gets you into the habit of actually using your imagination, because you have to be able to imagine it before you can create it. So that's the first
most of us are taught like, well, that's not true. Stop telling yourselves that, right? Like, because my question is, like, obviously seeing on girls is like, when does that all of a sudden come to like the part where it's no longer cute to imagine doing X, Y, Z, right? Like, I wonder, like, just on like a curiosity standpoint, when that does come to fruition for them to not think that it's okay to play dress up and play imaginary games or whatever it may be, right? Like, for most of us, I think it's because we get our hand caught in a cookie jar, and it's like, well, you no longer think that way, right? Like, you're X years old, you should not be thinking these things or playing these things, right? And like, when we get older, like when we really understand that kid that in moments in time is still running the show, but we're no longer able to express ourselves that way.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times we get so caught into how of like, well, I can't imagine how I'd make $1 million because I have to figure out how I would do it. And it's like, no, you don't have to figure out the how first. You got to get in the feeling and the intention of. So that's the thing. And so think about that. Like, do you dream anymore? Are you like, gosh, I want to have a house in Steamboat? Like, that's my thing, right? Like, I want to have a house in Steamboat. I want to have 4 snowmobiles. I want to be able to take my kids on quarterly vacations. Like, what is that? And what does that feel like? And we talk about time freedom. Like, we got done coaching the kids today at about 11:30, and I was like, one of our goals for ourselves is no work Wednesdays. That on Wednesdays, we don't work. Like, we're done at that point. And so, like, are you imagining those things? Are you dreaming them? You don't need to know how to get them, but you need to be able to dream, okay? So, when we're talking about coming to the best version of yourself, first let's start dreaming, okay? So first way, let's do the vision board thing together. It'd be super fun. We can drink wine, do whatever you want to do. Guys, you can drink beer. I don't care. You can do whatever you want, but, or not. I mean, whatever there. So first one's vision boarding. I'll do the second one too. The second one's meditating or breathing. If you guys have followed my journey, learning to meditate or do breath work and do that kind of stuff where I actually slowed down enough to hear my own intuition, was a huge game changer for me, right? And so we've talked about this all the time. Most of us are here. We're living in our head, and our head is rooted in the logical. It's rooted in fear. It's not rooted in the dream world or the subconscious. But meditation and breath work actually lets you create the connection to your intuition, and your intuition is where all the dreams lie. It's where all the truth lies. It's where all of that is. But if you're not creating time in your life to actually slow down enough to get into that, then you're going to have a harder time actually executing these things. And so the first one is slow down. That's going to change your state right now, and it's also going to change your ability to see where you want to go.
Well, and a lot of this, you guys, is when we get to slow down, right? For us in our program, we always call it downshifting, right? Like when we take a step away from the mass chaos that goes through, like I'll be fully upfront. Like when it took me a while to actually be able to be okay with like silence and not feeling like there always needed to be sound and chaos and things going on. Because first off, I didn't know how to do that. And the other part of it was actually kind of scary, right? Like there was a little bit of insecurity on the side of like, well, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe everything isn't going to be the way I feel it should be, right?
Or maybe I don't want to hear it.
Yes. And maybe there's going to be a reality of a slap across the face of like, what are you doing to yourself, right? Like, but I think for a lot of us, and I mean, just on a cultural aspect of how we are as Americans and just on Western society, like we oftentimes don't allow ourselves to get any space from anything, so we can't really tell what's going on. So by getting quiet, getting silent, stepping away, that allows you to see things in a lot clearer understanding.
Yeah. So next one is I did this the other day and it's super cool. So it's understanding what emotions are your primary emotions, what emotions drive you, like which are you most drawn to. Okay, so basically what you do is you take, again, like 10 minutes of just heart breaths. You can actually get into your body and into your memories. And then you're going to start the youngest with the first memory you can remember that was like a happy memory, right? So start as young as you can with your first happiest memory, okay? Write the memory down, be in the memory, and then write all the emotions that you felt, right? So was it joy? Was it happy? Was it love? Was it connected? Was it supported? Was it safe? Like what emotions did you feel in that? So you do your first one, and then you repeat that 4 more times. Do 5 total memories, starting from your youngest. And don't get super worried about like, well, which one came first? Like that doesn't matter. But what you want to get really, really specific about is like, what were those emotions? Like how did you feel, and how clear was that, right? A lot of times we go back and we talk about inner child, people focus on the negative things, but I really want you to think about those positive things in your life, right? So then you take the emotions. So say you have your list of emotions, love, connection, joy, all those things, right? And so then you take one of them and you line it up. So you write down a list and you write it up. So if one of mine was connection and then another one was love, I would write those beside each other, right? And then one gets to win, right? Which one are you more drawn to? So for me, it was love, right? And then you take love down to the next one, which is safe. Still for me, it was love, right? So you take the word love and you go down the list of the other emotions, okay? And then you do that with the next word. And eventually, as you go through that list, it's super cool because you come up with your 2 primary emotions. And then you can say, okay, in my life, these are the 2 things that pull me towards things, right? And so for me, mine was love and freedom. So I know that love is my primary emotion and freedom is my second one. So anything in my life where I can be feeling love, whether I'm giving or receiving or both, and then anytime I feel freedom, those are the things that I'm going to be more moved to do, okay? So that's a super fun drill, and it'll shed a lot of light to you about like why you do what you do. So that's the second one. Want to do the next one?
That's 4.
Well, they don't have to go in order. Oh, yeah, that one.
All right. So basically, on this, you guys,
we have notes, you guys.
Yeah, oftentimes we're trying to get fancy anyway. So oftentimes, you guys, I think we always fixated on what we want, right? Like we always get kind of caught up in like, well, what do we want? What did we do? But sometimes, if we have kind of the blinders on, we get kind of the tunnel vision going on of like, I don't know, I just live my daily life and I pray that I can survive to live tomorrow, right? And so me thinking about what I want down the road, that's not even in the cards for myself, right? And so Oftentimes, yet again, if you want a different answer for your life, you got to ask a better question. And so asking a better question sometimes requires you to think of the alternative to it, right? And so instead of thinking of what do you want, think about what you don't want. Right? Like if you can't think of the things that you want right now, what are the things you don't want in your life? What are the experiences you don't want? What are you right now experiencing that you are no longer willing to put up with, right? Like what is costing you right now for you not making the decision to make a different choice to do something else in your life, right? And so sometimes thinking of the alternative and asking the question can paint a clearer picture, right? Like, well, I don't know if I would want to make $1 million, but I surely don't want to be homeless, right? Like, okay, what would that feel like? What would that roof over your house be like, right? Like, well, I don't want to be a CEO of a company, okay? But what would it be contributing on some shape or some form to the business that you're in right now, right? Like, it may not be this grandiose thing on somebody else's opinion, but on your opinion, what would that mean for you to experience those things? And if you don't know, ask the alternative question of what is it, what don't you want, and what is it costing you not to make a decision regarding it?
Well, like, what are you doing in your life right now that feels out of alignment, right? Like, what do you do every day? What habits do you have that you wish you could change? What feelings are you experiencing? Like, what do you want to shift? And so a lot of times people are like, well, again, if you struggle with that, because if we haven't spent time on this, you guys, it's not something that's going to just happen like, oh yeah, I just totally did that, right? Like this is it's a journey, right? And so it's spending time and it's doing this sort of daily, right? I mean, so my favorite thing is like, does it feel contractive? Or does it feel expansive, right? And so if it feels expansive, it should feel light, it should feel easy, it should feel airy, and it's like, oh, I want to do more of that, right? So if like time freedom is your thing and you want to be able to take a nap at 2:00 every day, which P.S. I do very often, and that's a big deal in my world. So like, what can you do that feels expansive, right? And so if you're in a job that you're like, oh, I just don't want to go, right? Or you're in a physical state that you're just like, God, this just feels heavy and it feels hard, and I don't want to feel like this anymore, and I don't want to feel like this when I look in the mirror. And you're like, okay, well, what would feel light? Right? Like what would feel easy? And so easy could feel like, oh, I love the way I look. I love my job. I'm inspired by what I do. I want to do the things. That's what I'm talking about. And so like, so think about when you do something in your life, how does it feel? Does it feel expansive? Like, oh yeah, I totally want to go do that. Or does it feel contractive? Like, oh God, I have to do that again, right? And so use that as your microscope and then do more of what feels expansive and figure out how to do less of what feels contractive, right? And so for a lot of us, it's like, well, I have to do these things. And a lot of times you really don't have to do these things, right? So think about what are the things in your life? Who are the people in your life that are bringing you down? Like what can you shift? And can you shift your mindset around some of the stuff that does feel contractive so that you have a different vision of it, right? But when you start to do that, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I get up and I want to meditate, right? And that's why I'm such a big fan of like, do that first thing in the morning because it gets you in that mode of creation, right? It gets you, like some days I had these crazy ahas and like the rest of the day is just amazing because it's one thing I realized while I spent time being quiet, right? And so as you guys do this, it's a practice, right? So just spend, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. Like you can Google meditation on YouTube. A lot of them are like affirmations and stuff where it's not quiet all the time. It's not just music. So you're actually not stuck with your thoughts. They're kind of giving you the thoughts. I've got a couple free meditations. If you guys want to try those, let me know. I also am doing free breath work every Saturday at 7. It's all online. So it's super, super cool. So if you've never done it, it's actually really cool to do it with someone facilitating for you. So if you guys want to do that, we're here for you. So we know for a lot of people, it's a lot of new stuff that can feel, the uncertainty. You're like, I really want to do that because I don't know what's going to happen, right? Like Brandon said, there's a lot of resistance to this stuff. So if you can start to get in that habit, you're really going to start to grow this journey. And just know we're here to help you guys. So we're here to, if you have that resistance, you have all that stuff, just reach out to us. We want to help you guys. We know for most of us, we're all in quarantine now for at least 30 more days. We made it through March, you guys. Did you guys see those memes where we're like, it's March 97th? Well, it's going to feel like April 200th, I think. So, anything else you want to add?
No, I think with a lot of this stuff, you guys, it's just yet again, the more awareness we can bring to ourselves and the more we can allow ourselves to step away, because I think probably the vast majority of clients that we've worked with they come to us because they feel like they're stuck and they don't feel like they have any power over the scenarios they're living. They feel just like, I go to my normal 9 to 5. I pray that I get home, my kids aren't like demolishing me, and then I live to go through dinner, and then I relive that day every single day, right? Like it's the Groundhog Day effect, right? And so
this is really true right now.
Yeah, exactly, right? So a lot of this stuff, you guys, is the more we can allow ourselves to really be that little kid again. Allow yourself to really be that little kid again and see the world through a different lens. And what would that world look like for yourself? And understand that you do hold the power and the capacity to do it. It's just oftentimes we've been so beat into the ground by life, by our events, by experiences, whatever, that we sometimes tend to be looking through the world through a cracked lens or through some fogginess, right? And so if we can take a step away and maybe ask some different questions, see things from a different light, then we can actually see that we are still the architect of our experience and the architect of our life. And sometimes it just takes somebody else looking at it from a different viewpoint than the one we've been looking at ourselves for the majority of our lives.
Right. And yet again, I keep saying this, like the universe is giving us a time and space to shift and to change, and there's a lot of things that we've had to shift and change. So what are the things in your life you've been wanting to shift and change? You get to do that right now, right? And so we're talking about a different lens. This is totally just side note. So we went outside last night. If you guys haven't looked outside, if you don't think that us all staying inside is not affecting the world, it totally is. Because like we could see more stars last night from our back patio than I think I've ever been able to see. So like just know that there's a lot of healing happening in the world right now. Obviously, there's a lot of bad things happening. We get that, but there's also a lot of healing. And so, what can you do for yourself to also lean into your own healing? And how can you come out again? We keep saying this, like, how can you come out of this scenario a better version of yourself, feeling better about what you've done, and really moving into the best version of yourself? So, two other things I want to say. So, KO's on here. There is I think it's the World Run. It's on the 3rd, which is this Friday. So. Through Red Bull. So we're going to drop a link. So like there's no community things happening right now, but we can all get together and run. So we're going to post a link for that. But if you guys want to join us, we'd love to have you. So we'll post that as well.
Just to clarify, we are not promoting getting together
we're not running together
and doing those things.
You're just going on a run.
We're not promoting that. All right?
You. Yeah. It's just everybody's going to run on the 3rd,
you
right?
Go run at whatever time of the day you want to. It's just getting out and being active.
Stay away from each other, okay? And then second thing, I just want to say, Tori, congrats on your baby. Hopefully you're doing all right. The first few days are the hardest, but you're going to make it through, and she's adorable. So we love you guys. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Take care, y'all.